This account is chock full of clickbait, rage bait statements such as this, that undergraduate research is more creative than PhD research. And let me answer just this one in particular, because it comes from a complete misunderstanding of what undergraduate research is like, PhD research is like, and what's publishable and what's not publishable. But stay until the end for a success story of a math major and undergrad at my institution that actually made an incredible discovery. In his video, he's basically saying that PhD students are tied to their advisors' projects and they're tied to this publish or perish mentality, and they're only going to do those projects instead of exploring some like very creative ideas that an undergrad can do because they are not tied to having to publish that work. And this is just some fantasy land explanation of what undergrad and PhD research is like, because being this creative in a way that is actually a worthwhile study is extremely difficult to do. And you have to have a lot of training and a lot of background in research and in that area to be able to come up with a project that is worthwhile and that a student, undergrad or PhD, might be able to do and produce some results that are valuable. So for the most part, 99.99% of all cases, students are not capable, they're not prepared, they don't have enough background to come up with creative, very interesting problems on their own that they can solve in the finite amount of time of an undergraduate senior thesis or in the span of a PhD program. And therefore, the advisor has to come up with a project that they can feasibly complete and make some progress on. Now, if the student, undergrad or PhD student, comes up with a brilliant idea, some really creative problem to work on, absolutely, we would love that, and we would give them all the tools necessary to complete that project if we think it's feasible and it's not going to be a big waste of time or resources. But as I said, one of these very creative, very imaginative, very innovative ideas from an undergrad in particular is very rare, simply because they do not have the background in this area, the tools, to think about something that is like beyond the state of the art. However, it does happen. So let me give you an example of an undergrad at my institution that made some incredible progress in mathematics. This is the story of how murmurations were discovered, one of the most interesting discoveries in the recent past in number theory. And if you want to read more about it, go to the Quanta magazine article on this because it's phenomenal. So one of my colleagues, Q-Hwan Lee, with a couple of other collaborators, were trying something really innovative, which is use data science and machine learning algorithms to understand number theoretic data. And they would feed a bunch of data and see if the algorithms could detect or could compute some of the more difficult, computationally difficult invariants to compute in number theory. And in particular, they were trying to analyze some data coming from elliptic curves. And it just turns out that one of our undergrads, Alexei Podnikov, was looking for some research project, and he had a very limited background in number theory, but this was just some data science project. So Q-Hwan gave him all this data to work with, and the fact that he didn't have a lot of background helped in this case because Alexei organized the data in a way that a trained number theorist would not have thought of organizing the data. After organizing the data in this particular way, he started graphing the data, and then he found these remarkable patterns in the data that are now called murmurations, and that a lot of number theorists and mathematicians are trying to figure out where they come from. What do they mean? And can we prove something about them? It's a whole area of research that started thanks to the fresh point of view of an undergrad.